We have a junior world champion from 2006, a London Olympian from 2012, and I'm pretty sure, wait, I'm going to get this wrong, a national champion in beach volleyball in today. She doesn't have any sponsors, so if anyone feels like they want to sponsor this beach volleyball team after they've listened to this episode, you can find her on Instagram at Becchara, Becchara. Becchara Palmer, welcome on the show.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks so much for having me.
No worries. Did I miss anything on the intro?
I don't think so. That was pretty thorough. It's just that they're the high points. We'll just skim over the high points. Yeah.
Nice. All right. My first question, Becchara, is: do you have to be tall to play beach volleyball?
Well, you tell me.
Ouch.
No, that's right. You've played a bit. You've done pretty well for yourself.
I'm a solid 5'5" on a good day. So
there's a couple of girls on the world tour right now that are about your height. So
that's right.
A couple of the Japanese girls are kicking around and they're doing a really good job. And
some Europeans as well, right?
Yeah, there's like for a defender, and I'm a defender. Height is not the most important thing. Like if you've got to jump and if you're athletic and if you know the game, a couple of extra inches doesn't really actually make all that much difference. So I think one of the Japanese girls, we actually looked it up because we were watching her play when she was in Sydney, and yeah, I think she's like 5'5".
Yeah, so I'm tall enough for the elite female level.
For the women's world tour, you kill it.
Yeah, they also play on a lower net, so I'm still going to struggle with the men's. But socially, you don't really have to be tall though, no?
No, I think the only thing that I find with being a woman and playing socially is that you end up playing on a mixed net. So the net actually goes a little bit higher so that when you're playing with the guys, they don't, take your face off or something when they spike a ball. So personally, I don't really enjoy playing social all that much because you have to jump higher. I like the women's net. I like it at 224.
Is that the height, 224?
Yeah, and I think the men's is 243.
Yeah, the men's is like a mountain for me, but anyway.
It feels like a mountain for me too. I don't like it.
Yeah. How tall are you?
I'm 183.
Okay.
Yeah, so pretty much bang on 6 foot.
Yeah, you're definitely a fair bit taller than me. All right, let's start with just a brief explanation for someone who doesn't know. What is volleyball?
What is volleyball? It's a great question. Volleyball as it stands at the moment there's two separate disciplines. Some would argue there's a third one on the way, but there's beach volleyball, there's indoor volleyball, and the FIVB have just started playing snow volleyball.
Oh, I have seen
this.
Have
you seen that?
Yes. So, sidetracking a little bit, but is snow volleyball is it almost exactly the same as beach, but on the snow? Is it 2 players?
No, so it's
3
players, and I think there's subs. I have done zero research on the snow volleyball, so this could be all completely wrong. But there's three on the court. They, I believe, have a sub, so you can. I think it's teams of 4. The game plays the same. Beach volleyball scoring, but obviously
221.
On the snow. But I look at it and it terrifies me because it's like hard snow. So they're wearing shoes and they're wearing gloves and they're wearing beanies and they're playing volleyball. But I'm like, the idea of diving on like compacted hard snow, I stick to the beach. I think.
Yeah, I wonder how that's gonna go. Okay, but let's there's 2 kind of 3 versions. Let's do just the basics of indoor.
Yeah, so indoor you have 6 on the court. You have like a front row and a back row, so there's positions. The court is 9 by 9, whereas on the beach is 8 by 8 on each side. There's rotations, there's subs, you have a coach on the sideline. Generally the squad's about sort of like 12, 13 players all together.
Play to 25 points?
Yeah, so it's 5 sets.
Yep.
25, 25, 25. 25, 15.
Oh, the last one is 15 indoor.
Yeah, so the last one is 15.
And you got to win by 2 points.
Yep,
okay.
in every set.
And then on the beach?
It's the court's, like I said, 8 by 8, 2 per side. You don't have a coach, you don't have any subs. So it's literally just the 2 of you. You play 21, 21, 15 in 3 sets, and let's again win by 2. The net heights are the same. So women's net heights and men's net heights are the same indoor and beach.
Yeah. So it's a lot harder to jump higher in the sand. Yes.
In my experience, yes.
Kind of a obvious statement there.
It depends on how hard the sand is. If the sand's like manly sand, it's super soft, so it's really hard. Some of the places we go to, like last month when we were in Asia, it was like this tabletop. Like the sand is like rock hard.
Yeah.
So it feels like you're playing indoor, but you're on the beach.
So Manly is considered soft sand.
It's super deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great when everyone comes here because we train down there.
Yeah.
So then when the internationals come over, they're like,
Can't get out
what
of
is
the
this?
sand.
You're like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
In this every day.
That's a good point. I've never really considered Manly being soft sand because that's all I've really played on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen some places you guys go in Asia and the sand looks terrible.
Yeah. I think a lot of the time it's quite dirty. Like we're so lucky. Like the Manly sand is so beautiful, but it's like a combination of almost building sand and dirt sometimes. You get really filthy after a game. You're like, I need a shower.
Yeah, that's no good. So did you start indoor?
I kind of started with both.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
So I started in year 10. So I played all different sports growing up, and I went to a specialist sport school, Henley High in Adelaide. And the SASI, like the South Australian Sports Institute talent scouters, came out to the school and basically tested the whole year level for, if there was anyone that sort of stood out in any particular way to get them to change sports.
Yeah.
And I think my height and my arm span were a couple of things that stood out, and they asked me to come along and try volleyball.
Yeah.
And I did, and I literally quit my other two sports. I was playing tennis and basketball. And
Yeah.
within like 2 weeks, I was officially a volleyballer. But as part of that talent search program, you did sort of like half the year indoors to learn the skills and work out what volleyball is about.
Yeah.
And then the other half, you go out onto the beach and you learn beach volleyball and what it's all about.
Oh, that's awesome. So you go outside in summer in Adelaide?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are the playing conditions like there?
Generally during winter, when we're in Adelaide, you try and train sort of through the middle of the day. So anywhere from sort of 10 till 3 is good time to train.
Yeah.
Anything earlier and later can get pretty chilly, which is lucky that we spend most of our winters in Europe, which is obviously their summer.
Yeah.
So you don't have to brave the elements too much, but it can get pretty cold down there.
Yeah. Sometimes when I explain Europeans that it can get really cold down in Melbourne and Adelaide, they're like, oh, it's Australia, it's fine, but nah.
Well, by comparison to Europeans and
winter,
Norway, it's absolutely doesn't compare. But
we're not playing beach volleyball in Norway in winter.
That's true. Although the most crazy conditions, the coldest, the most awful conditions I've ever played in was in Norway.
Oh, really? In
the middle
Stavanger?
of summer, yeah, in Stavanger.
Oh, I've only been to that tournament once, and that was amazing, but I've heard that especially all the Brazilians complain because it's usually raining and cold.
They're
there.
always complaining about something. No, but Stavanger is one of my very favourite tournaments, top 2.
They have the sickest prize if you win. You get the Viking sword,
You
yeah?
get the sword, yeah. I remember hearing some of the American girls who won it talk about how difficult it was to get it through customs to get it home. They're like, this is really great, but also hard to get.
A weapon.
Yeah, exactly. A Viking weapon.
Yeah. So to backtrack again, you got pulled out from your other sports to play volleyball because they clearly had some faith in your abilities. But one of the things I explain to people who haven't tried volleyball, the initial skill level to play just to have even a little bit of fun is quite difficult, right?
Yeah, I think it is. I think because ultimately it's a rebound sport. It's not a catch and throw sport. And I think so many kids and people generally, if they're learning sports or they're playing sports, it's kind of that catch and throw idea where you can like gauge a ball coming towards you, you can catch it, you can throw it back, and you get
to hold it.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. You can run and hold it. That's a good point. But volleyball is very different. You have to time it to rebound, and if it doesn't rebound straight, it's gone. It's 3 courts over.
Yes.
So it is a very different. It's a very, very different, and the above head contact as well is a really bizarre. The spike is a really bizarre thing if people haven't done it.
Yeah. What usually goes wrong in the beginning?
Everything. Everything that can possibly go wrong goes wrong. What was the biggest problem I had? I think the biggest thing is controlling a first contact, like controlling a pass off your forearms, because like I said, you're so used to catching with your hand that the idea of aiming then a foot above your hand and make the ball contact there is a really bizarre, and then trying to get your hands together in a way that doesn't make it shoot off in the weird direction. So I think that's probably the hardest thing, and because it is the first contact, and there's
so important.
You can't do anything if you don't have a first contact.
Yeah. There's no game if no one can pass.
No, like you can set your way through it, but I guess it's not really how you want to be doing it long term. You don't want to get into any bad habits. So I remember doing sessions with girls that were quite a bit older than me, doing like serve receive, and just like banging my head up against a brick wall. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is such a waste of time. Because if you mess that up, the whole drill breaks down. You have to start again. So it's a good way to get good at something.
Yeah.
You work out pretty quickly if you're not very good at it.
Are you coaching now down in Manly?
A little bit when I'm here and
off season
when I can.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of groups of girls I do private sessions with in the mornings, but it's almost now that I'm back playing and competing, the time that I did have to coach, now I'm kind of having to train myself a little bit. So I'm going to try and do a little bit more because I love it. Like the community down there, the beach volleyball school down there is so great, and I really enjoy coaching. It's such a good change up from, competing all the time and being in my own head about what I'm doing. It's kind of sharing that.
Yeah.
But I actually pay, I have a lot to thank the beach volleyball school for, because when I moved to Sydney about a year ago, I wasn't playing any volleyball. I wasn't doing anything. I'd kind of felt like I'd had enough. And I started coaching, and it kind of reignited that feeling of like, oh, actually, I kind of know a bit about this sport. I've been doing this for a while, and I actually really love it. Like, it kind of lit that flame again. So I'm super grateful that there was an opportunity to do that, and that it's literally just around the corner. And
I think you're being a bit humble here as well, because having a coach down there at the Manly Beach Volleyball School at your level, that's awesome. It's such a good, good thing that they are able to offer.
Yeah, I think it's like Nikki, when Nikki was here, gosh, how long ago was it? Maybe a few months ago, in and around the Sydney time, we actually did her and I together went and did a Wednesday night, an hour and a half of like gameplay kind of stuff. So sort of giving people an insight into what we would do before a game, during a game, the sorts of things we would focus on. And I think that kind of insight's quite unique.
Yeah.
Because like you say, there's not a lot of the World Tour players that are down there. So it's nice to be able to offer that. It's nice to be able to share it and see everyone get really jazzed by it and see them improve. And beach volleyball is just such a good sport, and to see other people loving it as much as what you do, it's really cool.
We're really lucky in Manly and living on the northern beaches, right? Because we have how many courts are down there now?
Oh, there's
6, 7,
maybe 6 or 7, but there's temporary courts that pop up.
Yeah,
especially on the weekend in peak time.
Yeah,
people chuck their own courts up, and it fills up.
Yeah. Maybe actually explain to the listeners how the Manly Beach Volleyball School works if someone wants to try and play volleyball. Yeah.
Well, the best place to go is the Beach Volleyball School website, which is, now it's just going to test me. I think it's just...
Has it changed?
Well, I don't think so.
It's beachvolleyball.com.au.
Great. Excellent. That's the
easiest website.
Well, I wasn't sure if there was a Sydney in there. I just got confused. So on the website, they've actually just revamped the website. It's all been overhauled.
Yeah.
So you jump on the website. There's a schedule on there. There's pretty much morning sessions every morning of the week at the moment.
Oh, wow.
So Monday through Sunday. And then some evenings as well. And it basically works. If you've never played before, you come in and do a beginner 1 course where you get all the basics. You learn how to pass.
Yeah.
So that you can...
And you don't have to be tall.
Exactly. You don't have to be tall. So you can kind of start from the very beginning and work your way through. But there's a lot of people that come that have played in either America or Europe, and they're here visiting and they come out and they just slot straight into a C squad or something like that. So there's a really wide range from like the A and B squads all the way through to beginners.
And like you mentioned as well, there's a huge social community down there, and it's an awesome lifestyle because you're just spending all day down at the beach.
Yeah, just hang out at the beach. And I've been guilty of doing that a few times. I go down and coach on a Saturday morning, and then there's maybe a tournament on, or there's a few people playing games, and you just sort of jump in, and all of a sudden it's 3:30 in the afternoon. You're like, oh God, I have to go home.
Have to eat something.
Exactly. I haven't drunk or eaten anything all day. But especially in summer, like jump in the water. A lot of people, they'll go down, they'll have a session, they'll go out for a surf, they'll come back, they'll play a few games, hang out. Like it's a pretty
tough
magical
manly
place.
life.
I know, right? So tough.
Explain to me how you changed your focus from indoor to exclusively beach.
Well, I guess there was not really a point where I switched from indoor to beach. I was kind of doing both of them. So even when we played that Junior World Championships with our row camper, we came back from that trip and went straight onto the national team for indoor. So we went on an indoor tour to Asia literally a month later. So we were still, even at that point, still kind of doing a little bit of both. And then it sort of got to a point once I'd finished school and could choose, it was an easy decision for me because the beach was where I kind of wanted to be and what I loved more than anything. So I kind of just was like, okay, well, let's go this way. I think the pathway for beach volleyball within Australia is a little bit more clear. Like you can kind of go, okay, I'm here now. This is how I can work my way through to being on the world tour. Whereas indoor, at the time there was not really a national program. There was a bit of a development program maybe in Canberra, but you couldn't get to a full-time professional athlete here in Australia. You'd have to go to Europe and get a contract or go over to college or something like that. So I decided that I didn't want to do that. I didn't really want to leave Australia, and the national program, I grew up in Adelaide. The national program was literally 10 minutes around the corner. So it was kind of an easy decision to make.
So that's how you started being a competitive World Tour player after your junior career? Yeah,
absolutely.
What was your first World Tour event?
That's a good question. So after that, Junior World Champs, actually, before that we played a satellite event. So back then, it always makes me feel really old when I say that. But they had like satellite and challenger events that were kind of like the events that would lead into a World Tour event, like they kind of layer down. So Alice and I played one in Vaduz in Liechtenstein.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which was one of the first ones, which was really cool, like a really bizarre, as an Australian, to go to Liechtenstein and have all these like countries. We drove through Switzerland to get to our hotel, like just really mind-blowing stuff. Yeah. And then after that one, we won a wild card into an actual main draw event from winning that Junior World Championship. So that was
okay.
That was in. What was that in? It was either in. Actually, I think it might have been Kristiansand.
Oh, okay, yeah, Norway.
Yeah. Another one of my favorite. Norway's like one of my favorite places to play. I love it.
If the weather's good.
Yeah, only when the weather's good. I'm a fair weather Norwegian supporter.
Yeah. Well, Kristiansand gets a lot of good weather, but Stavanger is on the
port
west side of the coast. It gets tough.
Yeah, but it's so beautiful.
Yeah. What are the? Well, actually, let's do this. Explain how the World Tour system works. Roughly how many tournaments are there that you're trying to play in a year, and how much traveling is there?
Yeah, well, right now, so a couple of years ago, kind of while I was taking a bit of a hiatus, they changed the way the World Tour works. So there used to be Grand Slams and Opens, and they would sort of spread themselves out over the year. But
basically from January till December?
Yeah, kind of like March to November.
Okay.
Kind of, give or take. Sometimes they just dot a random one in a random month over summer, but generally it's that period of time. But now they're working on a star system, so there's pretty much 1-star through to 5-star events. And I think, last time I looked at the calendar, there would have been about 25 or 30 1-star events. So there's a lot of those. They're obviously a lot smaller. And I think only 2 or 3 5-star events. So then they kind of just filter through. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 more 4-stars left on the calendar this year.
What are the main 5-stars and 4-stars?
The 3-stars, now you're testing me. The 5-stars, I know there's one in Gstaad. Switzerland, which is stunning.
Yeah, I'd love to see that one. That looks like a sick tournament.
Yeah, and I think this year, because there's a World Championship, I think Hamburg last year potentially was a 5-star event. Yeah. But it's those big ones. I know in the past there's been ones like Klagenfurt in Austria has always been a massive, massive event as well. But the 5-star events are kind of getting less and less, I think, because they obviously cost the promoters so much to put on. Yeah. There's far more of that sort of like mid to low range tournament. Okay.
So some people might now ask, you said Gstaad in Switzerland. There's no coastline there. How are they playing beach volleyball?
We should actually Google it so you can. Have you seen the centre court? Oh my God. So it's basically in this tiny little like cobblestone town with massive mountains that, half the year are covered in snow and the log cabin kind of feel. And they literally just whip up this court kind of just off the main. It's almost like the Corso down at Manly, but European style. And they just put a
lot nicer than the Corso.
Well, it's a thoroughfare, lots of shops and they just kind of put the centre court
Chuck the sand in.
Yeah.
Grandstand.
I'm not quite sure where they pull the sand from, but they chuck it in, the grandstand goes up, and then the outside courts are kind of like a push bike ride around the corner, and they have a whole setup of all the courts, and it's stunning. Like you walk from your hotel to the courts and the cows with the cowbells, like the quintessential Swiss experience is exactly what you get. There's Milka chocolate everywhere, there's Lindt chocolate everywhere. It's amazing. But that's one of the most spectacular, like some of the photos that you see from that tournament are just
it looks unbelievable. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And I think actually the other great thing about that tournament is that the spectators that come and watch are really like really smart.
Educated on the sport.
They're educated,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So they know what's going on and they don't just sit at centre court and watch. They're like, all right, USA are playing here, I want to watch them. All right, Australia are playing here, we have to go watch them. So there's like, they have their sheet and they'll go and they'll find the players they love and they'll sit and they'll watch and they'll get into it, which is blows my mind.
Yeah, that is such a good point.
Yeah.
Because when the big tournaments have been on in Manly, I feel like a lot of people just go just to watch the spectacle of it, but no one really knows the European players, the American players, the Asian players. So they don't really know how big of a deal it is if you girls beat someone or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I found actually this year with the beach volleyball school, there is definitely that kind of group that know, they know that Kerry Walsh Jennings is coming and they want to sit and watch her, and they know that some of the guys are really good. So it's cool to see those ones who can actually see their idols playing. Yeah. But you're right. I think the majority is like, oh, this is cool. Yeah. Just go and watch without, I guess, the background information.
So that's the World Tour in a very brief format, but there's
as good as I could.
I think that's good for someone who doesn't know.
Okay, good.
But there's 2 major tournaments that doesn't happen every year. They're the big ones, right? They are
the Olympic Games and World Champs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Olympics every 4 years. Yep. And the World Tour, World Champs is
every 2.
2.
Yeah.
And you said there's one this year?
Yes.
2019?
Yeah, it's in a couple of months.
Oh wow, it's that soon. Okay.
Yeah, really soon.
You have made it into one of those big ones, maybe the biggest one, the Olympics.
Yeah.
Tell me about the qualification process that year.
Oof. It was hectic.
It's a headache, isn't it?
Yeah, I scratched my head like, oh gosh. No, it was full on. And to be honest, I would expect it to be full on. It's, it's the biggest tournament we have. It's the most prestigious and it's the one that everyone wants. So the qualification process for 2012 was about 18 months long. And you basically start at the beginning of 2011 and work your way through the whole 2011 season and then the beginning of the 2012 season. And then the Olympics was in July. So it's like that 18 months is just...
And are you playing World Tour events to get points? Is that how it works?
Yeah. So to qualify for the games, you can either go through the top 16 in the world. So the World Tour points, it's kind of like the tennis tour. Like every time you play, you accrue points. And in that 18 months, you basically want to accrue enough points to be sitting in the top 16 in the world. So then you can guarantee yourself a spot. If you fall outside the top 16, then there's a Continental Cup Qualifier. So the Asian region, American, European, African, they all have their own, basically one tournament. And if you've qualified for that sort of along the way, then you can go and play. And if you win that, then you get to go.
What did you do?
We scraped through the top 16. Thank God. We were kind of hovering around that sort of like 14, 15, 16, 17 little bracket. And then...
That is incredibly impressive, though. I don't think people realize that.
Stressful. Incredibly stressful. Yeah.
And who was your partner there?
Louise Borden.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'd played together. I think the second tournament we played an event in Poland and got a silver medal. Came out of the qualifier and went the whole way through. And I think that being our second event, we were kind of like, okay, this is a thing. We should probably go and see what we can do with this. And then we pretty much stayed together from that point, from 2009 all the way through to the Olympics.
Yeah. And it came down to right towards the end of that season, right? You guys still had to keep your spot.
Yeah.
Did you have a particular game that you felt like we have to win this to make it?
Thankfully not. I think I might have died. But no, we kind of got to a point and we knew that if we got top 10 finishes in the last X amount of events that we would kind of be okay. Yeah. But we'd spent a lot of the time, I guess, managing ourselves and managing, not looking at the list and not looking at results and not, counting numbers and being those people. Yeah. Even now it makes my heart race a little bit faster because that idea of, wanting someone else to mess up a tournament or, needing to get a certain amount of points is, to be honest, actually really distracting from what we need to just go and do, which is go and play good volleyball. Yeah. So we spent a lot of that time, wanting to click on the list and wanting to see where we were, but also being like, no, it's not going to help. So it was after an event in Rome where we'd played and I think we got a 9th at that event. And our coach kind of took us away. He's like, all right, come on, let's go and sit down. And he basically was like, you've done it. Like, you're fine. I think there was maybe one more event, but we'd sort of put space on ourselves that we weren't. And I just remember the exhilaration and the relief was unbelievable. It was a pretty cool moment, actually. I still I have a very vivid picture of that moment and then calling home and I think Dad was playing in a lawn bowls tournament in like country South Australia. So I rang and gave them the news, and he was up in the middle of the night because obviously the time difference. And it was a pretty cool moment. It was nice to have done it.
That is a special moment. You're now an Olympian.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't quite at that point. I had to go to the games. I had to get my accreditation, and then I could claim it.
Yeah, but you kind of knew you made it.
Yeah.
Did you get a tattoo straight away?
I did. Yep. There it is. It was so we played all our games in the first week. We lost a couple of really tight ones and unfortunately didn't get out of our pool. And in that second week, I've never done it before and I've never done it again. I think I went out like 7 out of 8 nights of that second part of the Olympics. And I don't know how I survived it. I think it was one of those things, and I think a lot of athletes say this is like the come down after it's like 18 months of just stress and trying to make it work, and constantly, the saying no to pretty much everything that wasn't helping to qualify for the games. And then all of a sudden the games are finished and it's like you're just free. So you kind of just make a mess for the next week or so. But yeah, a friend of mine, Shauna, who played on the English team, we were out one night. I'm like, yeah, we should get tattoos. It's a great idea. And she called me the next morning. She's like, right, I've made us an appointment. Meet me at the train station. I was like, oh, okay. I guess we're doing it. So I don't recommend a hungover tattoo. It's a terrible idea, even though it took 10 minutes. It's not that bad. No, well, it looks good. It took 10 minutes. Yeah. It was more the pain. No, I like it there. I like the tattoo, but I didn't enjoy the process. Yeah.
Did you pick the spot because of volleyball?
Or I actually picked it because it was something that I don't see it. Yeah. And I just like the subtlety of it. But then I didn't realize every time I talk to someone or every time I put my hand up, it's like,
it's right there.
It's right there.
Yeah.
But it's there now.
I've definitely seen worse Olympic tattoos.
There's some
big
crazy
ones.
Yeah.
Yours is pretty neutral.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
What was it like in London over there that year? Because I lived there before, and when they announced it, I was like, I'm out of here. Yeah, so busy.
Yeah. Well, it was super busy.
Yeah.
I haven't really spent a lot of time in London before that. So we got there kind of the week before just to sort of find our feet. We moved into the village. Well, I think we were one of the first teams or first countries to actually move in. So we sort of saw the village go from deserted, heaps of excited volunteers, but not much else.
Yeah.
All the way through that first week to just, the night of the opening ceremony, the place was just
chaos.
An absolute buzz. Like, it was pretty remarkable. It was pretty amazing being in a Australian, like in the team tower, everyone staying in together, like the sense of camaraderie and seeing other team members in the Aussie uniform and stuff. Like, it was really cool. Like, it was one of those experiences you're like, wow, it's hard to believe that we're here. Did you see anyone?
Did you see anyone and were you like starstruck?
Not necessarily. I think that the thing that I found, and I couldn't tell you exactly who the people were because there was a lot of faces, but the thing I found is that I recognized obviously a lot of people, and you're walking through and you're like, yeah, this is great, having a great time. And that many people that I would like say hi to as like a familiar, hi, like, how you going?
Yeah.
And then just kind of like look at you and keep walking. And I was like, oh, I don't actually know that person. I'm like, I think I know that person, but I don't know that person. I was like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. And then I do it again like the next day.
Oh, that's funny.
But it's that strange thing of, you see so many of the Aussies, especially the swimmers.
Swimmers are huge there, right? They're superstars, yeah.
And the track and field guys, like you feel like you know them. Like you feel like you've run the race with them to get them there because you've been following other people's progress as well. So,
journey,
it was pretty weird.
Yeah.
I try not to do that again. If I end up there again, I'm going to try not to say hello to so many strangers.
No, I think that's a good thing. It's better to be friendly than to be...
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Beach volleyball is a huge sport in the Olympics, though. It's one of the most viewed sports there, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so London, we played in Horse Guards Parade.
So Sick stadium.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And just such an iconic place in London to play a tournament. Like, it's like a once in a lifetime kind of thing. But yeah, Rio, like I think those tickets sold out within minutes of them going on sale, obviously being in Rio, and it's a massive sport in Brazil.
Yeah.
But it's,
Yeah, I remember Julian Prosser said that beach volleyball is the biggest sport in Brazil because football or soccer isn't really a sport. It's a religion over there. Yeah,
I've heard that before too.
I think that's true.
I think so too.
But what I think a lot of Europeans don't realize is that beach volleyball isn't really a big sport in Australia relative to a lot of other sports that we have because we think, oh, there's heaps of beaches here. Surely everyone's playing beach volleyball. What are some of the challenges with the growth of the sport here?
I think there's probably a few. I think like as kids, we have so many options. Like there's so many sports you can go and play. You can play soccer, tennis, basketball, NRL, AFL. Like there's so many things you can go and do. And I think volleyball now is starting to get a little bit more into schools and actually with programs and specialist kind of volleyball sports. But we're kind of a bit spoilt for choice. And I think when you look at the opportunity of, go and play AFL, potentially get an AFLW contract or potentially get an AFL contract, or you look at volleyball and it's like, oh, maybe I'd have to go to Europe and you could get a pretty good contract, but it's
feels like far away.
Yeah, it's less accessible, I guess. But yeah, it's blown my mind since I started playing volleyball. I'm like, I just don't understand how this sport, which is so quintessentially Australian, it's on the beach, it's fun, there's music, it's with your mates. Like, I still can't work out why we haven't quite gotten onto it yet.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but it is growing. It is growing. And I think it's just a slow burn because I think every time someone plays it, they love it.
If you had the power and the money, like you were the Prime Minister, Becchara, what would you do?
Oh, what a question.
Difficult question.
Yeah, I'd make beach volleyball compulsory in every single school.
Just force it down people's kids' throats.
Yeah, I'd make corporate companies have to sponsor beach volleyball teams.
Yeah.
No, gosh, what would I do? That's a good question. I think that there's a lot of things, and I think with an election coming up in the next, couple of days here in Sydney, I think there's so much talk around at the moment about the environment and about, really pressing issues that we need to be taking seriously. And I think that's one thing that I look at and it scares me a little bit to think that, the beaches, even just the temperature and the lifestyle that we have based around the environment is something that is so, I guess, fragile that I think it's important that we would do something about that. I've never thought of it.
It's a good way to look at it.
I've never dreamt to be in that position.
It's a good way to look at it, though. I think getting kids on the beach will make them appreciate it more as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Because you do, when you play down there at Manly, you do notice when people throw rubbish on the beach. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's the same with, there's so many nice like walking trails and stuff around here as well that you can kind of walk through them and you're like, I don't ever want this to get turned into housing or developed. Yeah. But also you want to keep it fresh. The wildlife and everything like that is such a beautiful part about this part of the world. Yeah. It would be a real shame to be contributing to its demise.
Yeah, we're very lucky. I think I say that on every podcast because
we are.
Almost every person I've had on is living and working and enjoying the Northern Beaches life. And and for me, being from Norway, somewhere far away, it's like, you almost don't even know how lucky you are. When you're here. Yeah. Okay, let's change gear again. I wanted to talk about something that I find quite unique with beach volleyball at a high level. It's a sport where there's two people. Yeah. It's a partnership. And it's when you think about it, there's not that many sports that have that. You're either an individual doing a high level sport or you're on a team where there's like 5 or more people on it. Yeah. But when you're tell me about some of the challenges and some of the good things as well with having competing at a high level in a partnership sport.
Yeah, it's such an interesting dynamic, and I've had this conversation a few times where it is so unique. And I think about maybe there's some rowers, like the double scull rowers who are a tandem. Maybe even doubles tennis players, but they generally are singles players that come together. So yeah, it's really unique, and I think the dynamic that I think works best, and this is something that Nikki and I are working really hard to create for ourselves, is that in a way you are an individual first, and there's an element of kind of having to look after your own shit for the most. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear.
No, you can.
Okay, good. You can beep that out later if you need to. But there's an element of like looking after your own stuff because ultimately you make up 50% of this team. So it's not like you're in a squad where you maybe make up 10%, because you're all on the field. Like you make up 50%. And the way that beach volleyball works is like if you're not on your game and if you're not good, you have to contact the ball every time it comes over the net. And it's a surefire way to have a really bad time if one half of that team is not performing and is not at their best. So I think that's one of the main things with this dynamic is that you have to really take care of yourself first and foremost. And if both parties are doing that and are doing that well, then there's that extra maybe 10 or 15% where you're a good partner for the other person. because ultimately if they're looking after their stuff, they don't necessarily need someone else interjecting and trying to fix stuff for them. So I think it's a really interesting dynamic. I also think because you don't have a coach on the sideline or that third party to kind of come in and mediate if need be, that also creates a really different dynamic. But I think the people that do it well are those that are very open and can communicate, and I guess can kind of check their ego at the door a little bit before they step out on court, and can take on the feedback, offer the feedback, and then just go and play. And I think that the trust within a team of two is probably the most important thing, that kind of dynamic.
I was going to ask a follow-up question, but you probably already answered it, because I wanted to ask what the biggest lessons you've learned from playing in a partnership, because one thing that can happen in a game is that someone does a mistake. I mean, in a game, someone probably is going to make a mistake at some point.
Unfortunately.
And if you're not the person making the mistake, then you also can't really blame the other person too much, right? Because you want to keep lifting them up, that you don't want them to make more mistake, but it can be pretty clear who made the mistake. An obvious example is if it's, if the other team has set point and you serve in the net, and then you've lost the game.
Were you watching our last games? Were you watching our games? No. I might have done that a couple of times.
But that's a pretty big mistake, right?
Yeah.
And it's clearly that one person's fault.
Yeah, they're in complete control.
Yeah. How do you, what are some of the lessons that you've learned from being in a partnership like that, where the stakes are pretty high and you have to balance that partnership?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing to remember, and is, I guess, that trust factor, is like, we're both there to do, like, both of our, I guess our missions on that court is exactly the same. We're there to win. We're there to play really great. Like, once that's kind of out of the way and you have that trust, I think wearing errors and wearing mistakes like that is just kind of part of the game. I think Nikki and I have gotten into a pretty good habit of, if that sort of stuff happens, kind of laughing about it. And it seems counterintuitive and it seems a bit like, oh, they just don't care. But the reality is that if you can laugh about it and kind of wash it off, you'll come out and probably win the first end of the next set, versus making the mistake, stressing about it, me pointing the finger, more stress, come out, you probably lose the next end and the game's probably done. So it's kind of the ability to respond in a really positive way despite what's being thrown at you and despite the circumstances, I think is a really hard skill to learn, but I think it's super, super valuable.
Yeah.
And I think the other part of that is, I guess, the ownership, individually being able to own a mistake or own something. So if I was going to say if I ever did that, I've done it a couple of times.
You've played for so long, I'm sure you've done it a few times, but it doesn't matter.
But doing it and being able to be like, fuck, that's my fault and I need to do X, Y, and Z. So the partner's like, okay, they're not gonna do that again. They know what went wrong. They know what happened. Onwards and upwards.
That is a great lesson to take away from it, though, taking ownership of your mistake.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing. And that's, you kind of can't hide with two people. And even, even to the point of if I set Nikki a ball and she goes up and makes a mistake, I'll always look at my set before I'll turn and point my finger at her and be like, oh, you should have hit that in.
Yeah.
Because I think the idea that everything I did in that situation is absolutely perfect is not true. Like that's just not how the sport works. So I'll always look to myself and go, okay, how could I have made that better for her? And perhaps helped her to hit a winner, and then, she'll take on her part of that and then we move on.
I think that's such a valuable lesson that you could take away from playing beach volleyball at a high level. It's so good. You can carry that through in a lot of aspects of your life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that process of like we sort of said before, that checking the ego at the door. I think if you take an ego into a beach volleyball team and nothing's ever your fault and you're perfect and it's all your partner,
it's not going to go.
Like,
I don't think you'll have a partner for very long.
Well, yeah, it depends on if there's any other options out there, but you're right. And
if you're really tall, then you get away with it.
Yeah, you could be a dick. No, that's not how it works.
No.
But I think that's a really important thing, and you can see it. You can sit and you can watch a team, and you can see those people that clearly nothing is ever their fault, and
it starts falling apart.
It's hard to watch. It's really hard to watch.
So tell me a bit about your journey with the sport, because you've had some really big highs, especially making the Olympics, like we mentioned. But then you've taken some breaks off from the sport as well. What led to that?
I think so I took a bit of a break after London, and I think just that the period of qualification that we sort of spoke about before was hectic. Like, it was really full on, and I sort of got out the other side of that, and just I didn't know myself. I felt like a shell of myself, and I was quite I was just in a real state where I couldn't really get inspired to go and train again or really do anything. And I look back now and I was like, there was a definite window of some depression going on in that time. And I think I'm really glad that I took some time away. Like, I remember we had a bit of a break after the Olympics. It was only a couple of weeks when we came back to Australia, and I went out to training, and it was like the first session back, and it was kind of like, all right, this is now the beginning of this next kind of period, and we're just going to get moving, and it's going to be really, light and whatever. And I remember walking out onto the court and like dropping my bag, and Mick, the coach that we'd worked with, was on the court setting up the net and whatever. And I just stood there, and I remember just feeling like it was a whole body no. It was like everything in me was like, there is nothing that makes me want to go out and get on that court and get back into this again. And I kind of stood there for a moment, and I was like, I can't do this. And I said to Mick, I was like, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I can do that. And to his credit, he was like, okay.
Yeah.
He's like, you go and you take the time you need. Like, you do what you need to do.
Did you feel some pressure coming back to Australia and playing on the Australian, like with the Australian community, being an Olympian?
Like in that moment?
Yeah.
No. I think the position that I was in, there was no real external pressures to go and do anything or be anything in particular. I think I was probably just so consumed with how I was feeling. I was like, I didn't really care, which I think is why I would look back and suggest that was a pretty dark time, because I wasn't really feeling much. I didn't really feel the pressure, but I also didn't feel inspired. I definitely wasn't happy. There was a lot of not nice feelings in that time. So I took that time off, and it was actually interesting. I had a conversation with Nat Cook, who's been to a few Olympics in her time. She's after about 5 now. Yeah. And it was in London. We were in the same apartment, and I said to her in that second week of the Olympics, I was like, I just want to go home. I want to spend a week in a day spa. I want massages and facials. I'm like, that'll fix me for sure. Like, that's what I need. And she was like, okay. She's like, you should go and try this thing that her partner Sarah had gone and done called Vipassana, a meditation retreat. And she was like, you should go try that. Like, that might be good for you.
Yeah.
It was in Byron Bay. And I was like, yeah, okay, sounds good. So I went home, signed up for it, and was kind of like, yeah, that'll be a nice, relaxing time that I can go and do. And that had been booked in probably about a month or so after that. So I ended up going and doing that. And it was absolutely not facials and yoga and massages. It was like the complete opposite. Have you heard of it? Do you know what Vipassana is? Oh. So in that period of time, I sort of took that break and went and did this Vipassana. And basically it's a 10-day silent meditation retreat where you meditate for 10 hours a day and you eat a couple of meals, but it's entirely silent. No phones, no books, nothing. Yeah. You basically just go and sit with your own thoughts.
Self-reflection.
For 10 days. Yeah.
Forced self-reflection.
Literally, almost. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that Nat suggested it, and maybe she took a look at me and she was like,
she knew what was going on.
I know what you need. And it's not what you think you need, but this is what you need. So I went and did that, and it literally, I easily would say that pretty much changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah.
Going and doing that and being able to digest everything that had happened, I guess up until that point, was so incredibly valuable. I think I cried for the first 4 days. Like, I just cried every day in bed, sitting in my meditation spot. I just cried. Yeah. And then I hit a point and I was like, okay, I'm good. I've got all that out. Now I can actually get something out of this. And I walked out of there an entirely different person. Yeah. So I'm super grateful for that. But that was, I guess then, it was like after that I ended up going home and having to have surgery on my shoulder. The period leading up to the Olympics and stuff, I'd had a bad shoulder, so I had surgery on that. And then kind of just played around. I was working a little bit. I was playing with a girl called Zena Stone. We went over and played a couple of World Tour events, played a summer together. Unfortunately, she had to retire because she was injured as well. Yeah. And then kind of was prioritizing more of the other stuff in life, like working and earning an income. And
I was going to say, after the Olympics, does that put you in a bit of a financial hold?
Lou and I had done really well from a prize money perspective. So for that 18 months, we were earning pretty well. So I was not too bad kind of through that period. It's more so the fact that I'd never had a job.
Yeah.
I'd never,
athlete life.
Yeah, like I didn't need to. So then the idea of then going out and potentially finding a full-time job with no skills per se was a really daunting kind of prospect. I was really lucky. A guy called Adam Steinhardt, who as a Commonwealth Games pole vaulter was based down in Adelaide, and I met him actually through one of the like Olympic Council events, and he owned an advertising agency, and he's like, come and intern. He goes, I get it. I get this phase that you're going through. I understand this whole thing. Come and learn. So I worked there for about maybe being about a year or 18 months and just kind of learnt the ropes of advertising, marketing, digital marketing, content marketing, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Which is another really amazing stroke of luck because I've been able to actually carry that out into a career for myself and actually been able to get full-time work and have skills that are valuable enough to offer a salary to, which is really good.
Yeah. It is such a common story with athletes, either retiring or getting injured, and then they just realize, well, haven't really made an earning and no super, and I don't really have any skills to put out in the workplace.
Yeah, I just think it's so valuable. Like the things I've learnt outside of volleyball in terms of just like being an adult or adulting, and having to look after yourself and be financially secure and all those kinds of things that I think in the athlete bubble you kind of get a little bit sheltered, and generally there's someone that's going to pick up the slack if something goes wrong. You're kind of quite protected. Yeah. So I found that there's been so many of those learnings that now I feel like I'm able to put back onto the court. Yeah. And I think they're super valuable. There's like a maturity and a sense of perspective I think that you get when you go back on court. You lose a game, you're like, it's not the end of the world. Like I'm not going to sit and cry for 20 minutes about it. It's like, oh well, that happens sometimes. Like onwards and upwards, which is I think a really healthy way to approach sport in general. Yeah.
But I think it takes a while to learn that lesson, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it does.
Yeah. When you're young, you don't really care about it. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So how did you find your passion back again for beach volleyball? And because now you're having a crack on these big tournaments again.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if we were recording before when I said this or not, but it was I moved to Sydney probably about a year or so, just over a year or so ago. My partner lives here. So I moved over to live with her, and we within a couple of months, obviously the beach volleyball school was down there. I was looking for some work, and it's kind of that's such a no-brainer, like to have the volleyball Olympian go and coach beach volleyball and make some money out of it. Yeah. So I went down. I remember the night before my first session, I was sitting there and I was talking to Rochelle, and I was like, I'm terrified. I'm like, I don't know what to teach these people. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm not going to be able to teach them anything. Like, this is going to be so embarrassing. They're never going to want me to come. Like, I had this full like identity crisis. Yeah. Which I was like, it's okay. Like, I think you're going to be okay. You'll be fine.
She knew.
Yeah. And I got down there, I picked up a ball, and I was like, got it. And literally it all just came flooding back. And I think it was that realization that it was just second nature. Like I actually didn't have to think about it. I knew. We got on court. As soon as someone started passing, I'm like, no, this. And I was like, it was just coming out of my mouth. It was like I was kind of the bystander sitting next to myself going, wow, like there's a lot of information in there that has just kind of been hidden away.
It's such a natural feeling to be nervous about your first coaching session, though.
I was so nervous. I think because it had been a while. It had been a few years since I'd coached, and thankfully it didn't take long. I came off the sand after that session. And I was like, this is the best. I was like, I just want to do this forever.
It's fun,
so
right?
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. So that kind of sparked it back again for you, and you. This was before you and your current beach volleyball partner played the Manly tournament, right?
Yeah. So that was beginning of last year. Yeah. So before I moved to Sydney, actually, I'd sort of taken a step away from the national program in Adelaide and had decided that, the situation that I was kind of offered while I was down there wasn't something that I was overly inspired by, and decided kind of to take a bit of a step away. Yeah. And the day after I did that, I got a phone call from the Adelaide Crows AFLW coach, and she asked if I wanted to join the squad as a rookie.
Yeah.
Which I was like, absolutely. Like, that sounds like so much fun. Like, the Adelaide Crows are my team. Growing up, I played a little bit of footy at school, but not much. But I think she saw me and was like, there's someone that's been an athlete for such a long time. And the squad was very full of 18, 19-year-olds who have never been athletes before and didn't quite know how to be an athlete.
Yeah.
So she sort of saw me and she was like, right, you can come in here and let's try and corral these kids into a positive direction.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I found going into another sport and being literally the rookie at the very bottom, learning how to kick and learning how to run and kick and learning how to take a tackle.
And the ball isn't around.
No, and it's like it bounces. I'm like, what is this? I think probably it was the contact and the tackling thing that was the hardest to get used to.
Oh yeah.
It's a good way to get you really inspired to like lift weight. Yeah. I need to put some muscle on these bones, otherwise I'm going to get destroyed. Yeah. So I did that for over that summer. So that was a kind of like a 4.5 month process. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. Like, it was a good challenge. It was exactly what I needed. Because then the feeling coming out of that and then going onto the sand and how second nature and how instantaneous it was is obviously not how football felt. Football was like a grind, and I was very conscious of every single thing and every person running around me. To then get out in the court and be like, oh, I remember how to do this. So that was, I think, the contrast between those things was probably the biggest indicator to me that there was still a bit of a love there, and I was like, oh, this feels so good. I just want to keep doing it.
That's such a good point, because I think it's great being a beginner at a new sport, because it humbles you.
It's so humbling.
Massively, and you realize how difficult something can be. Yeah. And even, I mean, for you coaching beginners in beach volleyball again, you realize, yeah, okay, now I understand why this is so difficult, because you guys have never really done it before. But then it must mean that you appreciate your skills, because what comes natural for you, passing a perfect ball in a windy condition, for a beginner, that's a nightmare. But you've done it so many times, and even at high stakes, you must look at that and appreciate your skill level, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely gives you a sense of a little bit more empathy for the beginner, because I'm like, okay, I can very easily put myself in your shoes and I know how this feels. So I think it probably made me a more compassionate coach, in that it made me probably more, I guess, not that I don't think I would have been before, but much more supportive and like it's okay. Like, this is going to come. Don't worry. It's going to come. Just stick at it. Yeah. But you're right. I think I definitely sort of came back into volleyball and then realized that, I can still serve. I can still hand set pretty well. Yeah. I can still pass okay. I can still spike a ball and hit a winner. I was like, okay, so I've like just skipped the first sort of 10 steps. I'm really happy to have done that work in the past 10 years. I don't have to go back there. I can just sort of like step in up here and go for it. So I again feel very lucky that was the case, that it didn't all just disappear and have to start from scratch again. Yeah.
So tell me how you and Nikki signed up for the Manly tournament. I think you... I didn't come down to watch it, but I think you guys had... I know.
You're the only person in Manly that didn't.
Well, I don't live in Manly anymore, so it's so much harder for me to go down there. I'm in North Narrabeen, so I get stuck in another bubble up there.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm in DY. I'm like right in between.
Yeah. But I try to follow it, and I think you guys had to qualify to make it into the main draw.
We did.
You tell the story.
So I guess the backstory to this whole thing of even just Nikki and I coming together to play together. So one of our good friends, Sarah Badagleen and Damien Schumann, were engaged, and they Sarah had her hens party over here in November at the end of last year. So at the time I wasn't really training. I wasn't really doing anything. I was working full time. I was like, yeah, I'm happy. I'm earning a salary for the first time in my life. It's great. Living in Sydney, having a great time. I thought I was, living my best life. And at that evening, Nikki had come over from Adelaide for the hens night. So it's a bunch of girls I hadn't seen in ages. We're all catching up. And Nikki was just talking about, I guess, some of the struggles she was having down in Adelaide with finding a partner and finding someone to kind of push through to the next Olympics, and just, the challenges that came with it. She'd had back surgery because she had a bulging disc that needed to be operated on, and the rehab of that, and just the process. Like, you could, there'd been a lot going on. And we were standing there talking, and it was like, as she was talking, it's like this light bulb kind of just like popped out of her head, and she was like,
you're available.
You need to come and play with me. And I was like, we'd had a few drinks, and it was kind of like, yeah, that's a nice idea. I'm like, I really like volleyball. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And Rochelle was actually standing there at the time, and she looked at me with the most serious look on her face, and she's like, "Are you listening? Are you listening to what she said to you?" I was like, yeah. Like, yeah, that'd be a fun idea. And both of them just went dead serious. And I was like, oh, okay. And I kind of just let it sit. And then the next morning I woke up and I said to Rochelle, I was like, I think I'm gonna do this. Like, I think this is something that's gonna happen. And Rochelle was like, yeah, of course it is. Like, I can't believe you think this is not gonna happen. I think she said to me, she said, the only reason why this wouldn't happen is because you're scared. And I was like,
oh, then you have to do it.
Damn you. I'm like, I'm so mad at you for saying that. But yeah, so then from that point, we had a couple of conversations and just sort of like spitballed ideas. I'm like, well, if we were, let's just say we were going to do this, what would it look like? And obviously she's in Adelaide, I'm here in Sydney, I'm working full time, she's training full time. Like, what would this sort of entail?
Because you haven't really trained together before, right?
No, we'd played one tournament in Manly a few years ago, just as like a fun tournament to play, but never together. We'd always been playing with other people. So yeah, from that point we just kind of kept talking about it, and then we're like, okay, well, we need to play some of the national tour events just to see if this is even a possibility. Let's see if we gel. So we played the Cobram Open. That was like a regional Victoria.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's like right on the Murray River. It was actually beautiful.
Oh, wow.
So we drove from Sydney, we drove to Cobram, played that, won it, which was really great. We went down to SA, played the SA Open. I think lost to Alice and Lucy in a quarterfinal, so took a fifth there. Yeah. But it was pretty evident pretty quickly. We were both like, yeah, this is going to work. Like, I think we're going to be able to do something with this. And then, so we were like, okay, well, the next obvious choice is Volleyfest coming up in Sydney. So we, actually, I think we went to Cambodia. We played a 2-star event in Cambodia where we qualified. Didn't play very well. I think that tournament goes down for both of us as the most amount of service errors either of us have ever made in a tournament. With both of us in the same tournament at that one. It was so bad. It was like somehow the footage off our camera just disappeared and never saw the light of day, thank God. So we played that, and then we played Volleyfest. So it was the national champs was the weekend before. And then the Sydney event. So we had 2 days. We played the 3 days of Oz Champs, which was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We had Monday and Tuesday rest. I actually went to work. I worked full day on Monday, and then we had like a recovery day Tuesday, and then we started playing in the qualifier. So the wild cards get offered out to teams within the draw, and there was one of the other Aussie teams got the wild card for that one. So Nikki and I were like, all right, no worries. We have to front up in the qualifier. So I remember getting to the end of that day, and we'd won our 2 qualifying games, and both Nikki and I were like, sweet, we haven't embarrassed ourselves. We got out of the qualifier, like, bloody great. Like, let's just go and have some fun and see what happens. And then we played the next day, won our games. We were like, great. Like, this is awesome. Like, we're doing really well, but also.
Were you surprised?
Yeah. Every day at the end of the day, I was like, oh, I can't go to work tomorrow because I'm going to be playing. And I kind of said to my boss at work, I was like, look, we've got this tournament. We'll probably play a couple of days. You know, I'll probably be in on Friday, whatever. She's like, okay. And then we just kept going. We just kept winning. And it was like, we'd get to the end of the day, we'd come up against an Olympic team. I think we played the Italians on maybe the Friday afternoon. We'd lost the first set 21-8.
21-8?
Yeah, we lost the first set 21-8. And we got to the end of that timeout, and both Nikki and I looked at each other and were like, we've had a pretty good run. Like, we've done pretty good. Let's just kind of go out and have some, because we played all our games on centre court through Volleyfest. So it was great. Our family and friends, everyone we loved was there. Like, it was such a nice feeling event from that perspective. So we'd lost that first set, came out, and we're like, let's get a few more points than 8, but we've had a good run. Yeah. And we ended up winning the second set. We ended up winning that game, and we both kind of came off, and we kind of like that doe-eyed look in our face of like, oh, okay.
What just happened?
Like, literally, what just happened? And I think from that point onwards, it was like, I don't know what's happening. I feel like I'm on a roller coaster that's driving, and I'm not necessarily steering it, but I'm on it, and I'm just gonna go. So when we won the quarterfinal to play in the semifinals on the Sunday, and we were getting home, and I think I just had this kind of glazed over look on my face, like, I can't believe that we're here. I can't believe that we're playing this event at home and we're winning. I think there was a little part of me that was like, I can't believe my body has stood up for the last 10 days. And like, I was tired and fatigued, but every time I got on court, it was fresh as daisy. It was like, it was a pretty magical kind of experience. And then to win it, like there was no part of us that ever thought we were going to win that tournament. I don't think anyone in the state, in the world, probably thought we were going to win that tournament. But it was pretty magical. Like the final point happened, and we obviously won. It was quite close in the third, and I just remember bursting into tears, just like happy tears, but just like exhausted tears. Like we'd been playing
all week.
Yeah, I think we played 15 games over the course of 2 tournaments in like pretty much a week. So yeah, it was pretty unreal. Yeah, it was pretty unreal. And then probably the best part is when you get up, you get your medals and stuff, and then the anthem plays. And I was like, it's been such a long time since I stood there and heard the anthem because of us winning. I've heard it because other people have won. Other Aussies.
But they're playing it because of you.
And on Manly Beach, on the home beach with so many family and friends, and like it was
magical.
It was magical. That's the only word I can think of is magical.
It's the best part about being an athlete. That's those moments.
Those moments, And it was amazing to come back from not playing the sport, I guess, in November, and then that happened in March. It was like a 4-month period. I sit back and like, my God, like it's insane. I still can't quite wrap my head around it, and that's okay.
Yeah. It's a good point that you raised there, playing that many games over the week, because I think an impression is that beach volleyball is kind of a fun sport. It's not that physically demanding. You're running around in the sand or whatever, but it is a lot harder than people expect. I think especially after you play your first beach volleyball game, you realize your legs are really, and your quads are really sore because you're running around in the sand. What kind of training do you do outside of beach volleyball, or just playing the actual sport?
Yeah. I think people that suggest that beach volleyball is not a physically demanding sport, you kind of go, oh, you've never played. Okay, no problem. That's fine. Let me know once you have, and then we'll have this conversation. I think the off-court stuff at the moment in terms of complementary training is something that I feel like I'm in a bit of a exploring mode at the moment. I think for the majority of my career, the lifting program and things like that have been kind of set out, and it's just our job to rock up every day and do what has been prescribed, I guess, for want of a better word.
Can you give us some examples when you say lifting program?
So being down in Adelaide and based in the national program, they actually have a really great strength and conditioning team down there. So there's a lot of like Olympic lifting, a lot of dynamic stuff, a lot of plyometric stuff, depending on the time of the year, I guess, in the competition. But lifting anywhere from 3 to 4 times per week in the gym, with sort of like in there for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours at a time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, big, heavy kind of sessions.
So when you say Olympic lifting, do you guys do clean and snatch and stuff? Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
So like from deadlifts to clean, snatches, pulls, all that kind of stuff. And then complementing that with some like speed and agility work on the sand. So a lot of the speed and movement we do on the sand, obviously, because that's what we have to move in. So that's kind of been the majority of kind of what I have experienced in the past. And I think coming back into the sport and now having what feels like a bit of a second chance or a bit of a second lease on life, I'm trying to find some different ways to get myself to a point where I'm really rock solid, like my body's not going to break, but I'm also really happy and jazzed about going and training every day. And I think I've been in that situation so many times where training is not fun, and getting out of bed and going to train, getting out of bed and going to the gym is not inspiring. And I'm like, I don't want to come back into this sport to feel like it's a drain and a drudge. So I'm like, I'm going to try and find a way that, keeps it pretty fresh.
Have you found anything that you're really enjoying?
Yeah, I think I've actually started doing some like Pilates, like reformer Pilates stuff, which I love. I love that feeling of being really strong through range. And I think it's quite relevant to beach volleyball because you're constantly in weird and strange positions flying all over the court. So I'm really enjoying that. I really enjoy that feeling. I was actually just saying this morning that this idea of getting in and training, being really short and sharp with training, and going really hard for a small amount of time and then getting out is kind of feels like something that I'm probably going to explore a little bit of, which leads me to kind of like a CrossFit style workout, which seems crazy coming out of my mouth because I think I've avoided CrossFit like the plague for so long. So all I see is people vomiting and passing out after workouts. And I'm like, oh gosh, that doesn't look like that much fun.
CrossFit has developed a lot as well in the last 10 years. It's not the same.
Which is exactly the feedback that I've had. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe I'll give it a...
Make sure you go to a good gym.
Well, that's it. Well, there's a few around here, right? There's some good ones around here, which is good. But I think a lot of the things that are outside, like going down to the sand dunes at North Curly and chucking a ball around and then running up a sand dune, or done a couple of boxing sessions down there on the sand.
Oh, cool.
Oh, it's brutal, like so brutal. But just finding ways to kind of incorporate fitness and getting fit, but it not feeling like I'm training by myself in the corner of a gym and it being,
work.
Yeah, it's probably the best way. Like I've started swimming quite a bit. So going down like the ocean pools here, I just love. Like we don't have them in Adelaide.
Yeah.
So coming down and doing some laps down at either DY or Freshie or somewhere like that is like, it's such a lovely thing to do.
Yeah.
Just not this time of year. It starts to get a bit cold.
It's still all right.
Is it?
It's not too bad. Yeah.
Okay, well that's good.
I'm saying that, and then you might go in this weekend and it's dropped
And
4
it'll be
degrees.
freezing, yeah.
We're close. We're very close to
Yeah.
it dropping, but yeah, it's still fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and things like even just being here, like the idea of getting out into the water. Like I'm such a water baby. I love the water. I love being near it. I love being able to hear it.
Yeah.
So trying to incorporate some of that stuff that's a little bit more holistic into the strength and conditioning side of things.
Yeah.
And by no means have I nailed it yet. I think it's going to be a bit of a work in progress.
I think it's never perfect.
No.
Yeah.
And I think maybe getting rid of that idea that it's going to be like, oh,
This is it.
here's the formula, I've got it,
Yeah.
nailed it, because then it will change, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying, I guess, that discovery phase.
Yeah.
And being able to just kind of go, okay, what am I liking? What am I not? And being a bit more agile around it versus, I guess, set and stuck in my way.
Yeah, that's good.
Never want to be stuck in my ways.
Like I said, it always changes, and we change as well, right? So yeah. Okay. What does the diet look like for your normal beach volleyballer?
Yeah, or normal beach volleyballer. The diet is another one of those things I think probably I'm approaching in a similar way to the gym stuff. I've tinkered a little bit with the intermittent fasting, kind of not eating until lunchtime and just having the food window at the back end of the day. I think there's definitely been times in my career that have been super restrictive and super, I guess, unhealthy in terms of the way that I've gone about my food. And
Is there a bit of pressure to be really light?
Yeah, there definitely has been in the past. There was, especially through that London phase, there was I felt a lot of pressure from myself and externally to be leaner and to drop some weight, which is really all consuming and quite debilitating a lot of the time. And I think I look back now, at the time, I guess I didn't have the insight, but I look back now and I'm like, I was so stressed and I was for periods of time under eating and training a crazy amount. So look at what that then is like. The amount of cortisol that would have been pumping through my veins is unreal. And I guess, I wasn't meditating. I wasn't doing anything to kind of look after myself and support myself. So it makes sense that I'm carrying 3 or 4 extra kilos. Like, of course. And
you weren't really going to lose it because of your diet. You needed to take the stress level down.
I needed to just chill out a little bit, which I've tried to take into the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely been some times there where it's been a problem and it's not been a nice space. So I guess now on the flip side of that, I'm trying to be a little bit more intuitive with it, I guess, and less restrictive. And there's nothing that I can't or won't eat. But trying to find that balance of eating to make me feel good and to give me energy and to kind of take care of myself, and then be able to perform, be able to, think clearly, be able to sleep well, be able to train well. That's kind of the ethos behind where I'm going. I definitely went through a really big phase of like bulletproof coffee. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd make myself a massive vat of bulletproof coffee. And I found actually on this last trip, I've just come home because I can't make myself bulletproof coffee on the road. So I've come home and it's not calling me quite so much at the moment. I think have you had bulletproof coffee before?
Yeah, it was a phase for me. I didn't last very long.
Yeah, well, I reckon I lasted probably a good year.
Okay, that's good.
And it's only kind of been in the last couple of weeks. So I'm like, oh, you know what? I think my body's gotten used to not having the big fat bomb first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, like a few things, like I'm using some of the adaptogenic mushrooms and stuff like that I put into my coffee, and just like multivitamins and things that feel good in my body. I'm sticking with. And
what do you have for breakfast? Wait, you're doing intermittent fasting?
Yeah,
still?
well, when I was having the bulletproof coffee, I was doing that. So basically the bulletproof is okay in the morning through intermittent fasting because your insulin won't spike. So I would basically get up, have a bulletproof coffee and then wait until lunch. But now, like this morning, I got up, took the dog, have a bubble bath, went to the gym, came home, and my mum came over about a month or so ago and planted out my veggie patch out the back. So I went out there this morning. It was the first time I've picked a bunch of stuff. So I picked some kale and I picked some spinach out of the veggie patch, and then just went and made like an egg scramble with some mushrooms and that. So I sat there, had that, and then my black coffee. And I love that. I love that idea of being able to go out and pick something and then like cook it and eat it. I think it's it just feels so
very holistic.
Oh, it feels really like hearty, and I really love it. So that's what I had for brekkie this morning. I'm trying to obviously have a big tour and some big tournaments coming up. So I'm trying to sort of clean myself up a little bit whereas perhaps I would have been a little bit more like relaxed and not so fast. I'm trying to kind of tighten the reins a little bit so that.
Yeah. It must be difficult to eat when you're traveling as much as you do, right?
Yeah.
Or eat healthy, I should say.
Yeah.
Eating is easy, but.
Well, yeah, eating is easy. I like eating.
Yeah.
No, I think because we've just spent 4 weeks in Asia. So we spent 2 of those weeks in China.
Yeah.
And at the moment, there's a kind of recommendation out there that athletes don't eat the red meat because the way that the meat is farmed over there, they use a lot of steroids to bulk the beef, I guess.
Okay, yeah. So that might flash up on a test?
Yeah, so there's been positive tests before that they've linked back to red meat in China. So that's the overarching recommendation is that you don't eat the meat over there. So, in my suitcase, there's like half of my suitcase is pretty much tuna, rice or like couscous or, a whole bunch of stuff that we just try and take with us so that we're not kind of at the mercy of whatever's in the Bain Marie at the end of the night.
Yeah, wow.
But a lot of rice, a lot of greens, and a lot of tuna.
Tuna, it's not too bad, but you get over it after a while.
Yeah, so you got to get lots of different flavors. You got to get the lemon and pepper and the tomato and mix it up a little bit. Keep life interesting.
Nice. Alrighty, Becchara, what do you got coming up? I think you're traveling again, playing some more tournaments. Mm-hmm. And where can people follow your beach volleyball journey? Yeah,
so from here, in a couple of days, we fly back to China. So we have a 4-star event in China. We have to qualify for that one as well, so that'll be fun. And then we're back for a couple of weeks before heading to Europe. We have another 4-star in Poland. We found out yesterday that we're playing in a Swiss national tour event that we've got a wild card for, which is pretty great. And then we have been selected for World Championships this year. So we're awesome. Yeah, we're the second Aussie team that are going over to compete, and that's in Hamburg.
Who's the first Aussie team?
Taliqua Clancy and Maria Fay.
Yep.
So they're killing it at the moment. They're doing such a good job. It's so good to watch them.
Such a young team still. Yeah,
but just watching them play really great is really cool. So they're the top team, and then we'll be there as well. Yeah. And
European summer for you.
Yeah, baby. So we're going to play that, and then potentially the 5-star in Stade.
Yeah.
And then there's a few more tournaments after that, but we'll make some more decisions later, and that's kind of going to be the bulk of our trip. But I guess right now we're looking at world champs and working towards getting some runs on the board there. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And where can people follow you?
Probably the best place is Instagram. That's kind of where I tend to be, which is just at Becchara.
Yeah.
I got really lucky with that handle.
You got really lucky with the handle.
The perks of having a strange name.
Yeah.
But that's probably the best spot to follow along, and I try and keep things as updated as I possibly can.
And when are you back in Manly coaching beginner classes?
Oh, everyone keeps asking me this question, and I don't know. I can't give them an answer.
Depends how much you're winning on the tour.
Yeah, well, yeah, it does depend on how much we're winning, but hopefully soon.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I'm looking forward to see how your European summer goes, and best of luck in all the tournaments.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks very much.